Jumping in real quick to let you know this video is sponsored by our pal Jonah Lobe, amazing artist, and he's got a new project coming out and he has a Kickstarter launching today. You can go support him, get access to his new project, but also the prop we're making in this video is going to be one of the high tier rewards on his Kickstarter. So if you want that prop, it could be yours. Check the link down below to support Jonah and maybe even get a really cool prop. Welcome to the shop, fellow maker. You've got Bill today, and we have a really special project. Our buddy Jonah Lobe reached out. He's one of the most incredible artists I know. He's behind such iconic designs as the Draugrs. If you remember, we did that costume years ago. Bunch of stuff from Fallout, bunch of stuff from Skyrim. Basically, all around amazing creative dude. And he has a new project and wants us to build something from it to help promote it. We talked to Jonah recently, so I'll let him explain what the project's all about. So Jonah's worked with us in the past, helped us design that dagger that's right in the background there. And we're pumped because now you've come to us with a design to make something very cool. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your graphic novel?
Of course. I am working on a graphic novel called Quiet Level 1. As you know, I've done a lot of 3D game design, creature design, monsters, but I've also worked in illustrating of books, and this will be my first graphic novel ever. It's about a little 3-foot skeleton named Quiet. They're very cute, they're very sweet, they can't speak, and they are going up against a rampaging barbarian as he tries to climb the levels of the world tree and destroy all of creation.
That's pretty amazing, and it gave you a cool prop that you thought would be fun for us to make. The villain's weapon right here, the axe.
Absolutely. You guys did such an incredible job with this a couple years ago, and it was so fun collaborating with you on this that I really wanted to just turn to you guys again to do this. This is the villain's axe. It's called Rüna, and there's an element of it that is kind of a villain's axe. There's an element of it that is kind of heroic as well. So it's right on the edge there, and I'm really thrilled to see whatever you do with it.
Well, this is really exciting. We got to get some materials. We've got to get down in the shop and get to work making this incredibly epic weapon for you. Cannot wait to get this into your hands.
I am so excited. I really can't even express it. I've been quietly telling my friends and family.
Awesome. All right, let's get down to the shop. Thanks for getting us started here, Jonah. We will take it from here.
Good luck.
Jonah sent us a really great orthographic drawing of the Rüna axe, and the first thing I did was to plot it all out full size and start coming up with a plan. So here it is. It's about 4 feet tall. Got the huge axe head with this sculpted wolf head on it, and then this big wooden handle, and that's where we're going to start today. We ended up buying a whole bunch of poplar boards that were already prepared, and then we laminated them all together using wood glue to make a big piece of stock that we can then cut our handle from. Our wood has dried for a couple of days. It's definitely ready to go, and I've printed out the template of our handle here so that we can trace it and cut out the rough shape. We're outside because we're about to make a real mess. I need to shape this a bunch, and I'm going to use an angle grinder with this carving bit. I've seen all my woodworker friends use these things, and they look pretty fun, but also a little dangerous. So we're all safetied up here. We're going to make a mess. Got all the first bit of roughing done with that first bit, and I've swapped over to a sanding disc now to do a little more refining. Did all that really fun power carving. We got everything mostly down to shape. Did a bunch of sanding as well, some 100 grit. I will go in and refine this just a little bit more, probably sand it a little more before we finish it. But for now, I'm gonna set that aside so we can get started on the blade. That's gonna be made out of plastic. These are sheets of PVC foam. I was able to get it in 1/2 inch thickness and I needed it in 1 inch thickness. So I glued a bunch of these together. We used a special glue. This specific Weld-On glue is for PVC and it definitely glues this stuff together. To laminate the 2 layers of plastic together, I brushed some of this adhesive on there. It's a cement, and then I stuck the 2 pieces together. Probably should have looked up how to do this ahead of time because it was evaporating so fast. It seems to have worked. I ran a little bit more glue down the edge so that it would sneak down in between any gaps. And I think we're pretty good. This stuff's pretty nasty. I did work with it outside when I could and wore a respirator and all that. All kinds of warnings right there. So our plastic stock should be good to go. And we're going to use the CNC machine to cut these pieces out. Mostly, we're going to do a bunch of hand sculpting after the fact. But to get the axe head shape mostly there, we're going to do it on the CNC machine. We're going to do it in halves. So, well, in 2 pieces, and those pieces will be done in halves. This is sort of the main top section of the axe, and this is the bottom that sticks out. So I'll cut out one of them on this side, one of them on this side, and then those will get glued together. So I'm going to spend the next, I don't know how long, standing in front of that CNC machine, making a mess. I'm set up here in Fusion 360. Here's the bottom part of the axe. Actually, it's just half of it, half of the bottom. And I've figured out an adaptive clearing thing here. It's basically going to do that. All those lines are the paths that the cutting head is going to take to sort of remove all the material here. If we do a little simulation, you can see this is what the stock would look like, and as you chew through it, it is going to start removing all that material. This is, of course, way faster than it's going to happen in real life. This whole thing's probably going to take about 1.5 hours. But at least with this simulation, we can pretty much see what's going to happen, so we know what to expect. Looks good to me. I think I'll tell the machine, start cutting. We got all 4 of our pieces cut out on the CNC router from this Sintra. It mostly went fine. However, gluing those pieces together, laminating them, didn't work perfectly. And this part kind of popped off completely, but I was able to glue it right back on. It's just a bit of a seam I'm going to have to deal with. All the parts got sanded down to 100 grit with my random orbit sander to get rid of as many of the CNC artifacts as I could before we'll do some final cleanup later. But for now, I've got 4 pieces here. Let's see, these are backwards. I have 4 pieces where I need one giant axe head, which means I need to start gluing all these parts together. I'm also probably going to put some pins in between these parts because this is a pretty weak butt joint right there. These are going to be my support pegs. These are just some finishing nails, and we're cutting them roughly to the same length. Pooh. Awesome. That might have been a little deep. There we go. Only need to go that deep. Sort of pre-gluing these pegs here with a little super glue so that they're in just the right spot when we go to do our final glue up. For this glue up, we're going to use this 5-minute epoxy that is starting to show its age. Squish. A little squeeze out. Probably some on the back too. We'll just hold this together with tape for now as our clamp. Cool. Just let that cure. Okay, we gave our 5-minute epoxy exactly 5 minutes to cure. So our pieces should be nice and stuck together. A bit of a lip there we'll have to sand down. Sand that down as well. Let's get rid of all that dust. It's a big surface to glue up. I've got more of this cement glue here. I'm going to dribble a bunch all over this surface and then sandwich them down. That's how I glued that extra piece back on and it worked great. So we're going to try that again. I'm also wearing my respirator. This stuff's nasty. Especially along the edge. Looks really good, nice and lined up. There we go. 4 pieces are now one. We just have to let this stuff dry. Okay. Everything is glued together. We have one big solid chunk of plastic. And we're going to have to sculpt some stuff over this and the handle. So I think it's time to attach that handle. These will get attached with glue, but also 5 screws. So I'm going to pre-drill the holes through our handle here and then transfer those holes to the axe head. Got my holes started, but to get all the way through them, I'm going to need an extra long bit. I always feel like the Jack Nicholson Joker when I use this bit. Well, not perfectly straight through, but that'll be okay. I'm clamping everything in situ here so that it can't move while I drill the holes through the wood and into our plastic here. We don't want anything shifting. Boop. I'm going to use these screws to... That's gone forever. I found a second one down there. Where'd that come from? I'm going to be using these screws here, so I've got to counterbore a hole big enough for the screw head, hence the large drill bit. Time for the big glue up. We have our screw holes and then just a couple of pegs to hold everything in place. We're going to use, again, our 5-minute epoxy for this. Got everything ready to go. I traced out the area where it's going to be glued, so I know exactly where to put all the epoxy. In we go. Oh, it's some good clamping action there. And the third one. Nice and sturdy. Even with just the screws, even with just the screws, it feels really sturdy. We'll let that cure though, and it'll be extra strong. We're going to end up sculpting over all of this, but I want to take up a little room where the nose for our wolf is. So I cut out this scrap of plastic. We're just going to glue that down there before covering it with epoxy clay. Got some more 5-minute epoxy mixed up. Probably more than I need here. This is all going to get covered. I'm trying to be clean, but it doesn't really have to be. Squish. And then let's get a little tape. Yeah, could you hold that for me? Thanks, Britt.
Welcome.
Now we wait another 5 minutes. Yeah. We got all the forms bulked out basically. It's time to do the detail work. We're going to do some sculpting. For that, we printed out the part of the design we need. We're going to transfer this to this surface. To transfer this, I am going to just use a pencil. I'll cover the back of it in pencil lead, mostly over where the lines are. If I can swing it. Actually, you know what? I have a softer. This is like a 6B. I'm sorry, a 4B. This is a little softer. This should transfer better. So I'm just going to cover the back of this in graphite so we can trace it on the other side, and it should show up. With all the graphite loaded, I can flip it over and line it up, and then we tape it. Now I just trace over the lines on this side, and it should send that graphite down on the surface on the other side. Should. Yeah, just like that. Over the whole thing. Now that I can kind of see it, I can come in and darken it. I've retraced over everything to get a nice dark outline so we have a good idea where all the features are going to go. Now it's time to do some sculpting. We're going to use an epoxy putty. This happens to be Magic-Sculpt. There's a bunch of versions out there. It's just this dough-like stuff you mix together. You can sculpt it and then it'll cure rock solid. Probably going to do a couple of passes. We have some areas to bulk out here. I have to set this up though so we can work on both sides, and I have, I think, a brilliant idea. I got to attach this thing to the heaviest surface, and that happens to be our workbench. So I am zip tying the crap out of it to this leg, and then I can work on this side while Brittany works on this side. I think this is going to work out pretty well for us. Our clay here is a 2-part. We got a resin and a hardener. Got to mix them 1-to-1 by volume. I need a pretty good amount to fill in some of the gaps we have here, so I'm gonna just tear out a big bunch of it. Probably more than that. So we'll mix this stuff together, then you have 1 to 2 hours of working time, which is plenty of time. And then it's like an overnight cure sort of situation. This side kind of smells like corn chips. I don't know why. Corn chips are no place for a mighty warrior. Are my balls of equal size?
Close enough.
All right. Just a tiny more of this stuff. Really have to knead this stuff to get it pliable and workable. The heat from your hands will really warm it up. All right, side A and side B. Now we combine, and the clock starts. We'll do multiple batches. We're not going to get it all done in one go. So, first batch we have about an hour or 2 to work on. After a few minutes of mixing, our dough is ready to apply. Nice and workable, and I don't see any swirls left. Let's go for it. I'm going to start by filling in just some of these areas that need volume. This was a little oopsie. We'll just fill that right in. This is the nose of the wolf here, and it's going to be fully covered in clay. Got most of this area bulked out and filled, but there's lots of little lumpiness going on there, so I've got just some normal water, and I'll use that with this one very simple tool and my hands to start smoothing out the area. We can sand this once it's fully cured, and we will definitely do that, but we want it to be as close to finished as possible so we don't have to do a ton of sanding. try and get rid of all the seams between disparate pieces of clay so that it's all one homogeneous lump. We are getting near the finish line for this first batch of sculpting. We're going to have to sand it. If you're curious why I didn't CNC this part, I had this machine set up. Well, we've been at this for like 3 or 4 hours now for sculpting both sides. And it would have taken me at least that long, probably longer, to 3D model all of this. And then that would have been a couple more hours worth of CNC work. Also, I kind of like that there's a hand-hewn quality to this. We'll tidy it up with our sanding and everything to get it really sharp. But it's got that medieval hand-hewn quality to it, and I really like that. Plus, this is fun. We don't get to do a lot of hand sculpting, so I'm just enjoying myself. And I'm really pleased with how it's turning out. Got to keep those sculpting skills fresh. This keeps me from stabbing my face on this pointy corner part here. It is the next day. Our epoxy clay is fully cured, which means we have some sanding to do. Technically, this is still sculpting, but our tools of choice are things like 100 grit sandpaper. And this is the good stuff we spring for this purple fancy, what do they call it? I don't know. It's really good sandpaper. It lasts a long time and it moves a lot of material. But we have a few other tools. I've got these card scrapers. These are usually used on wood. I've had a lot of success using them on 3D prints. Our buddy Ben Eady gave us that tip. These things are awesome. Then I also have files. I'm going to do a lot of shaping. And again, this moves a lot of material before we get to the sort of fine tuning. So we're going to put some music on. We're going to do some sculpting. Well, we have made a lot of steps forward, filling and sanding and sculpting. All of the bigger spots that needed to be filled in, we used a catalyzed filler for that. And then all the little spots we filled in with this air drying stuff. Anything smaller than a 1/16 of an inch, you can use this on. Up next, it's time to prime the whole thing and kind of see where we're at. When you have so many different materials, it can quickly become difficult to see any indents or spots that need to get fixed until you make it all one color. So we're going to mask off the wooden handle because we want that to stay looking like wood. And then we're going to prime it. I carved this line in here so we have a separation between what's going to be painted and what isn't. The teeth will also be painted, so I'm going to have to mask around those. This is also a great time to treat yourself to a fresh X-Acto blade. Got the fine masking done over here, but to cover this, I'm just going to use plastic wrap. It's a lot cheaper and it covers a lot faster. I seem to remember in college, my buddy had a roll of industrial plastic wrap from like U-Haul, and I think we wrapped up one of our roommates, put him in a chair, and flung him down the hallway. Does that sound like something we would have done in college, Britt?
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Whoop. There. We've let our primer dry, everything's the same color, and we have a much better idea of what's going on here. I can see like a little spot there I need to fill. I see a lot of 100 grit scratches that we'll take care of with our next round of sanding. We're going to step it up to 220 here. And the other thing I see is everything's blended really well. I really like how well we got the sculpted stuff blended in with the plastic. This plastic is a little fuzzy, that'll go away with some more sanding. Well, we've been through several rounds of priming and sanding and filling and sanding and priming, but I think we're finally at a good place to move forward with the finishing. But we have one more detail I want to do before we do our final bit of priming. There's these kind of lower spots here, and here, and here, and there's still a bit of a texture there from when the CNC machine cut that out. I thought about filling and sanding it, but then I thought, what if we used that texture? It'd be kind of cool for the lower spots, like in the eye and the nostril down here. Maybe those have just a little bit of a texture to them to add some contrast. So to do that, one of my favorite techniques is to use something like a PVA glue. I'll put some on there, let it set up for a few minutes, and then when it's just kind of tacky, go in and stipple it, and that adds a texture. You can do a couple layers of that if you want to add a little bit. We've used that on a bunch of our projects. Actually, hold on. Like this one. That's how we did this texture on this little guy here, and I really dig that. Let's add it to our axe. Don't need a lot. So I'm just going for coverage right now, and then we'll come back and stipple it. I have these stippling brushes here. I even have this teeny little one for getting in the corners. And if we get it anywhere we don't want it, you can just wipe it off. Giving it like this random texture here, but that'll level out a little bit as it dries, and we'll just come back and touch it up later. We gave the PVA glue about 10 minutes to dry, and it's starting to tack up, so I can go in and stipple over it, and it leaves that texture there, and that's what we want. This is a really, really great, quick and easy way to just to add a little bit of a sort of random texture to something. Hopefully the last round of priming. It is time for paint. We're going to hand paint this with just some brushes. I'm going to start with a base coat of like black and silver, like a dark metallic, to go over the whole thing. And I'm going to do it with this mop brush. And I'm going to water it down a whole bunch. We're going to do a nice thin layer of a base coat here. Something that dries fast. Now we just cover everything. Try not to leave any brush strokes. I'm okay with this stippled texture, but I don't want lines, at least not yet. The next layer is going to be silver. We're going to thin it down a lot. I have added a lot of water. And I'm also going to tint it a little bit. I'm going to make this layer warmer with some brown. Just a little bit of brown. Oh, that's a lot more brown than I thought it would be. Okay, so I loaded up my chip brush with this thinned paint, and I'm adding streaks everywhere in sort of random directions. And we'll do this several times with a couple different layers, and we'll end up with this really nice mixture, hopefully with a little bit of depth. The next layer I'm adding just a touch of blue to cool it down. So I'll have two different colors we can kind of swap between to get a little bit more contrast. I'm not covering everything. We're just adding another layer of detail. We did a few layers and let it dry. It's nice warm out today, so everything is dry enough. And I really like where things are now. All the surfaces have all this nice interesting detail going on. Next thing is going to be to do the highlights. We're going to do some dry brushing, get like the blade edge there, all of the high spots here. And that will actually be dry brushed. So that means we're getting our brush loaded up, and then we're brushing most of it off. We have just a little bit on the brush. You can always add more if you have to, but when it comes to dry brushing, less is better. I'm just adding stuff to the high edges as much as I can. I want it to look like lots of little scratches. Really focusing on this secondary bevel here in this high corner. Just letting the paint catch where it can. Got our highlights done. I want to go over those low textured spots again with more of this dark black silver mix, just to kind of bring back some of that contrast. We've let it dry long enough that I am ready to pull this masking tape off. I'm also very excited about removing the masking tape. Yeah, right along the edge there. Oh, that's so freaking cool. There we go. It's time to add some color to the handle. This is what we're going for right here, this almost burnt sienna. We've lightened it a little bit, and I think we're pretty close. This thinned paint, this is just acrylic paint, but it's thinned with water, so it's a little bit more like a stain. I want the wood grain to come through. I don't want to completely cover it. We're just about at the finish line here. I want to do a little bit of a wash just to add some more color down into the crevices and everything. I've got a raw sienna to make it look just a tiny bit rusty, and then a dark brown. I think it's a burnt umber here. Again, this isn't brand new. It needs to look a little dirty. After putting it down, we can lift most of it back off and just leave a tiny bit down in the crevices there. That just about does it. I think I have a little more I want to do to this thing, but the paint isn't dry yet, so I want to end it there. Again, this is for our buddy Jonah's Kickstarter, and this piece right here is one of the high tier rewards. So if you want this, you can go buy it. Check out the link down below to see Jonah's Kickstarter, support it to make more cool art happen in the world. Jonah's art is the coolest, and I can't wait to read his new graphic novel. So head on down there and support Jonah, because he's a cool guy. He's worth supporting. This was a lot of work, but also a lot of fun. One of you will end up with it, and that's exciting. I'm not even sure if Jonah's going to see it before then. We'll see. Either way, I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to help our friend and make something really cool in the process. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. Thanks so much for following along, hanging out with us in the shop today. Thank you, Brittany, for all the work behind the scenes. You didn't see it, but Britt helped a ton, and she's the best.
You're welcome.
That'll do it from us in our shop today. Thanks to the extra credit members for supporting what we do. I have a link down below so you can jump in either here on YouTube memberships or on Patreon and get access to our videos early. We appreciate your support. You keep the lights on around here. That'll do it for us. One epic project in the books. We'll see you in the next build. Ah!